Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. Hopefully, everybody's having a good week thus far. We already had three people in, so I might just get right into. So here's what's going down tonight. We're gonna go. Well, actually, even before I get to that, I do need to kind of do a follow up on an announcement I made last night. So looks like the week of the 6th, October the 6th, I got summoned for jury duty. Now, here in California, apparently it's like either one trial, one day, one trial kind of thing. So, I still, but I'm going to give you some forewarning. There may be a chance that I may have to preempt at least one or some shows that week. If, depending upon, I could, basically I could go the 5 days, not get called, or I could, or I get called in the first day, maybe, ultimately get excused, or I get stuck on a trial. So things are a little bit more up in the air, as it were, but I will try to do some shows that week if I can, depending upon, when I get called in, when I have to go in and all that. So that's kind of an update on that. I got registered this morning. I got the summons yesterday just before the show, so that's why I was kind of like in a little bit of a frantic mood, as it were. But anyways, with that being said, with that piece of business being out of the way, let's talk about what's on tap for tonight. So tonight, I got a couple of stories I'm going to go over, both from bounding into comics. One of them talking a little bit about some stuff going on with Kamen Rider. Let's see. We got some news about Kamen Rider, as well as some news about Demon Slayer. So we'll get into all that soon enough here. Plus, of course, we'll have the Wrestling Wrap-Up. We'll look back to, of course, last night's Monday Night Raw. Some things happened there. Talking about some, also big announcement coming out of TNA. We'll look ahead to tonight's NXT. Some other revelations, particularly on the rivalry between WWE and AEW. And then we'll wrap things up with this day in these history. So with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started? Let me just go ahead and bring up the Bounding into Comics site, as it were. And as always, guys, if you can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we, and this goes for both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers. If you can, as I said, like and share the live stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Oh, let's see. I just scan through real quick to see if nobody said anything on Rumble yet or on YouTube. So okay, so let's get into this article here. First article of the evening, the Kamen Rider one. All right, so Kamen Rider Zets proves Toei serious about moving Americans past Masked Rider. Article by Cider Hype, published back on September 21st, 2025, which I believe was this past, let's see, September 21st. So today's the 23rd. So yeah, this past Sunday. So let's see what's going on here. As a long-running cornerstone of Japanese entertainment culture, one of the biggest strengths of the Kamen Rider is that it also serves such a role for paternal relationships, with many fans having the shared experience of getting into the franchise through not just their generation's respect show, but their fathers or their grandfathers who themselves likely watched it when they were younger. And now its latest hero, Kamen Rider Z, seeks to build on that 50-year history. 50 years. Wow. In 1971, Takeshi Hongo leaped onto children's weekend programming wearing his iconic grasshopper-inspired armor. Following a teenager that had been transformed into a war-ready cyborg against his will, the high stakes and drama of the first Kamen Rider series propelled it to instant popularity, endearing itself to audiences deep enough to not only survive through a 5-year off-air period between Stronger and Skyrider, but birth more than 71 different writers over the years. And while Hongo's successors would not always have such dark backstories, with some even finding their way into their role by choice rather than being forcibly kidnapped by Shocker on their way to school, they would all share the same goals: delivering justice and defending the world from the forces of evil, whether they be aliens, ghosts, or living candy. Living candy! Actually, if anything, that kind of reminds me of Majin Buu from Dragon Ball, from Dragon Ball Z, because Majin Buu kind of just one big marshmallow of a man who just loved to eat candy. Anyways, among those who chose the hero life is the sixth franchise lead of the Reiwa era, Kamen Rider Z, a dream-themed adventure with flavors of Christopher Nolan's mind-bending Inception. Z centers on protagonist Baku Yorozu, basically portrayed by Ryutaro Imai, an operative of the confidential organized defense establishment code agency, who dives into the dreams of ordinary citizens in order to protect them and the world at large from Nox, a mysterious figure who can bring nightmares to life in a similar way to known horror icon Freddy Krueger. Wow, that's a very interesting way to borrow from another field, another genre. Assisting the stylish 007-esque agent in his work is Nem, portrayed by Maho Horiguchi, a celebrity who can continue to take on different forms. Okay, I think something was a little off with. I think it should say a celebrity who can take on different forms from dream to dream. Detective Tetsuya Fujimi, portrayed by Kenta Mishima, primary assignment, digging into mysterious quote-unquote black cases, is stressing him out to the point of lashing out at his allies, and the eponymous boss and source of technology for code itself, a real showstopper of a motorcycle named Zero. Normally, Kamen Rider hasn't really had much success in the West due in largest part to Saban's infamous Masked Rider attempt, with the last series to come to America in particular being 2009's Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, an adaptation of Kamen Rider Ryuki. And though Dragon Knight won awards for its inventive cinematography and fight choreography, it still didn't make enough of a lasting impression to sustain it for another American adaptation. Sadly, this has left Western Kamen Rider fans with limited options to legally and easily their favorite series, with options being limited to Toei's YouTube premieres, classic episode live streams on Pluto TV or Shout Factory's Tokushoutsu YouTube channel, or a handful of spotty releases from Discotheque, Shout, or Media Blasters. And that's what makes this series so groundbreaking, as in service of Toei's previous public acknowledgement that they were seeking to expand their brands beyond the shores of Japan. Zets will mark the first time a Kamen Rider story will be simulcast in Japan and America, as well as Canada, Hong Kong, Vietnam, and a number of other nations that typically have to wait to watch via translated versions. Now, this is not like an anime. This is more live action. This is something like similar to like Power Rangers and stuff. So I don't know if they would like kind of like try to recast with American actors or just have American voice actors dub over the characters. So not as familiar with what the process is for a Kamen Rider. If Metal's here, he might know more about that than I would. About how they probably go about that process. So anyways, as we, of course, continue on here. So, where can you watch this awesome installment in the Kamen Rider franchise? We know for sure that it will begin airing on the Shout Factory Kamen Rider Zet's Twitch channel on Saturday, September 6th at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. So that would be a week from this Saturday. So this Saturday is the 27th. So 1 week. I believe that would be. Oh wait, no, actually no. Saturday, September. Actually, we're already well past that. In fact, this article must have written a while back because maybe they had to edit it or something like that. But because I just realized that we're well past that now. That was like 2 weeks ago. With its layovers and themes having recently been remodeled with Zet style theming. Right now, it's unclear if Toei Company has any further plans to simulcast future tokusatsu hero programming, especially their seminal Super Sentai, but you can help make those dreams a reality by tuning in to catch all of Baku's Dream World drama. Now, Super Sentai, I believe, is the title, the Japanese title for Power Rangers. So, I believe that's. And there we go. I do actually need to step away from the computer for a moment, so I'll be right back. But I'll put some music on while I'm gone. Keep you guys entertained. I'll be right back. I don't even know why I did that. Anyway, could go back there. Goof there. Anyways. So that being said, anyways, we're gonna get ready to move on to the next article that we're gonna talk about tonight. All right, so this one kind of caught my attention a little bit. Let's see what this guy has to say. So let's see where this one's going. Again, a friendly reminder, of course, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. That goes for both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers. So with that being said, let's get going here. So Crunchyroll president says success of Demon Slayer Infinity Castle proves, quote, how wrong many of the myths about anime fandom are. Article by Spencer McCooley, published today. So, all right, see you later, Jen. So that was my sister who just was letting me know she was taking off. So, anyways, so let's get into this. In the opinion of Crunchyroll president Rahul Parini, one of, if not the most definitive lessons that can be taken from the absolutely massive record-breaking success of Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie Infinity Castle, is that many of the long-held, particularly negative stereotypes regarding anime and its fans are completely outdated. I wonder what he means by that. But I think I kind of have an idea, just based on the name. But I guess we'll just wait and see. Debuting in Japanese theaters on July 18th, the latest animated adaptation of Koyoharu Gotoge's popular manga near instantly cemented its place in both cinematic and anime history by breaking its home country's records for highest grossing opening day, 1.64 billion yen. That would be the equivalent of $11.11 million, United States dollars. And highest grossing 3-day opening weekend, 5.52 billion yen, which equates to 37.42 million US dollars. As well as earning enough in said opening weekend, 5.52 billion yen, 37.42 million dollars, to place as the second highest grossing film of 2025. Continuing to break records with its September 12th release in US and Canada, Infinity Castle took home an opening day pull of 70 million US dollars across both countries. In doing so, posting North America's biggest opening for a September animated release and its best overall for an anime film. The last record notably secured by dethroning 1998's Pokemon the First movie, whose box office total amounted to 31 million US dollars in its opening Veterans Day weekend. Given Infinity Castle's meteoric rise to the top of the charts, the aforementioned Parini, under whose direction Crunchyroll distributed the film in international territories, was asked during a recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter's Asia Bureau Chief, Patrick Brzezinski, as to what, if anything, Tanjiro's latest victory could reveal, quote, about how the audience is changing for anime, unquote. In reply, the Crunchyroll CEO asserted, quote, I've been saying for 3 or 4 years now that anime fandom is no longer niche. It's mainstream and it's gigantic. Quote, what this movie did was show that to the world in a way where there's a lot of historical context to compare against. At Crunchyroll, we've had data and research showing how big and broad anime has become, and we could show it in the context of other shows on our platform. But Infinity Castle's success is the perfect way to demonstrate this to the broader entertainment world, because it's happening at the box office, where there are 100 years worth of benchmarks, it's now undeniable how big anime has become. All right. I haven't really seen anything here that tells me. Okay, so I was kind of I was under the impression he was going to like try to say, yeah, we put all this like woke stuff in and that, it made a success. But thus far, he hasn't really said anything here, where, I don't know, it's like he's like trying to stick it to traditional anime fans where he's like gleefully trying. I haven't seen anything here in that. Okay. Anybody who's ever watched Demon Slayer knows that it's shonen anime, and most shonen animes do have that broader, do tend to have that broader appeal to people because it's more action adventure. It's not. You do have like in this case, you have the whole substory about Tanjiro trying to find a cure for his sister who's been turned into a demon and all that. That's true, but you can't really push too hard any like ideological things in shonen anime because people are not watching it for those ideological things. This guy, it sounds like he's trying to, at least according to how I read the headline, right? It's almost like this guy was trying to say that, see, we made it woke and it worked. Ha 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 ha. Up yours, traditional anime fans. But I haven't seen that yet here in the article. So if anybody else got any kind of comment on that, feel free to chime in. And we will continue on here. Let's see what else is going to be said here. Maybe it'll be later in the article here. Let's see. Quote, another thing we've known about, which again showed up in the North American box office, is how wrong many of the myths about anime fandoms are. Many people have always said, in small quote, oh, this is a Japanese medium, so it must be heavily indexed toward an Asian audience. Okay, now I see where it's coming into effect. Well, most obviously, since Japanese are the creators, yes, their culture would be heavily influenced because most anime creators, most mangakas and anime creators are Japanese. Okay, so I mean, it would, but yeah, and it can have a broader feel to it. But first and foremost, it is primarily a Japanese medium that just happens to spread out. It originated in Japan. Now, there are people out there trying to make anime their own thing, make their own animes and all that. But first and foremost, it is generally still considered a Japanese medium because that's where it started. Small quote here. We've known for a while that this isn't the case. It's a very diverse audience. It over-indexes across all different ethnicities, whether it's Hispanic, African American, or South Asian. It over-indexes. I think what this guy seems to be confusing is he's confusing the idea with the fact that I think what he's trying to say is anime is more than just a Japanese medium, and he's confusing that with the idea that people outside of Japan can enjoy anime. Okay, as even Yellow Flash has pointed out on a few occasions, part of the appeal to anime for most people, even outside of it's kind of a look at Japanese culture. you know, contrary to what many in the West want to do, is go in there and say, okay, we don't like these things about Japanese culture, so we want you to change it to satisfy us. That's, not what people want. That's not why a lot of people like myself who got into anime, years ago, right? Even some of us who grew up watching anime, even as far back as the 80s, watched some of the adaptations of now granted, some of them were kind of watered down, Voltron, like Robotech and all that, like Battle of the Planets. Some of them did get watered down, but overall, it was still looked at being from the Japanese perspective. And I think that is what I think many commentators have talked about this. That's what is, there's been a lot of talk that, Japanese creators should stop trying to just specifically cater to outside interests and just continue, because it's not broke. Contrary to what a loud few, a loud minority may be screaming, most people like anime for what it is and what it's always been presented as. Quote, again, this has been in our data for a long time, but this box office success has been the perfect opportunity for other parties to see it firsthand via exit polling and more traditional methods. Well, first off, again, it is still traditionally Japanese. Okay? It's a shonen anime, so shonen are always going to have, as long as they focus more on the action and the adventure parts of it and don't try to wokeify it, it's always going to be, to say that, oh, this is successful because it's not a Japanese medium is stupid, because it is a Japanese medium. That's where the term anime originates from Japan. Okay? Just like manga. Those are Japanese terms. That's where it originated from. To this end, Perini was asked if there was any truth to the recent analysis that anime's new popularity was a strictly, quote, Gen Z and Gen Alpha phenomenon, to which he declared, quote, it's absolutely true, Gen Z and Gen Alpha are a huge part of this fandom. Well, every generation, because there are a lot of people going to be into it, but there's still people from Gen X and Gen Y who are into it as well. So, but that doesn't mean they're the only age groups. Quote, we see a lot of parents coming to see Infinity Castle with their kids, and there were many fans in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and the fandom does over-index among the young, though, unquote. Well, again, because it is animation. And animation is always going to, because of the bright colors and all that, it's always going to appeal to a younger demographic. It's more lively, it's more active, right? For North American fans who have yet to see it, Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle, is still currently screening in theaters. But as always, especially with anime films, your mileage may vary. All right, so I was under the impression, based on how they worded the heading, I thought this guy was going to try to sell it like, yeah, we put all this woke stuff in it, and see, it sold. But his argument that, anime is not just a Japanese medium, that falls a little short there because it is a Japanese medium. It originated in Japan. Okay. Just because they have baseball in Japan doesn't mean that it's a Japanese product. Now, yes, Japan, as I remember from the movie Mr. Baseball, right? A quote in there where they said, we in Japan, we take something good and we just make it better. Okay. So, but it is still a Japanese medium, and it would always be considered a Japanese medium. Yes, it now has some more it has a lot of mainstream success now, and has for like the last 20, 25 years, it's been becoming more and more mainstream. But anime is still a Japanese medium. A lot of the source material for animes comes from manga, which are Japanese comics. Animes are adaptations, or basically televised or video adaptations of mangas, of Japanese comics. Not to say there haven't been a few Americans who tried to do anime and do manga, because we've seen that too. But the technique was originated in Japan, therefore it is a Japanese medium. It's first and foremost a Japanese medium. So anyways, let's see, we're at 37 minutes. I think it's a good time then move on to and again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. So with that being said, of course, actually, before I do that, I'm going to need to step away from the computer one more time here. I'll be right back, but while I'm gone, I'll put some music on to entertain you guys. When I come back, we'll get into the wrestling wrap-up. right, we're back. Anyway, so as I said, got back. We'll probably go ahead and move on to the wrestling wrap up. So, of course, we're gonna start off by going back to last night's Monday Night Raw, and with that, also, we're gonna talk a little bit about some news that came out from the WWE last night. So it looked like so Piper Niven may be out for a while because apparently, albeit they have not disclosed what the injury actually is. Apparently, she's got a injury that kept her out of a match this, I guess, past Friday on SmackDown. The injury in question may be career ending. Now that has not been confirmed that it has in fact ended her career, but they're saying that she may have suffered a career, and we don't know what exactly it is yet, but we'll just have to wait and see. So let me see. Anything else that I can think of? I know I went over the WrestlePalooza event yesterday. So, anyways, let's see. Anything else I can think of? All right. Nope. All right. So, happening on last night's Monday Night Raw, here's what went down. So, the opening match in a no disqualification 6-man tag match saw Penta team with former WWE World Tag Team Champions, the War Raiders, Eric and Ivar, beat Grayson Waller and the New Day of Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods in a no disqualification 6-man match with Penta hitting a Mexican Destroyer off the top rope onto, I believe it was Kofi Kingston. In the next match, in a women's match, Bayley defeated Roxanne Perez in a singles match, in which you had Lyra Valkyria in Bayley's corner and Raquel Rodriguez in Roxanne's corner. After a fury at the end there, Bayley got the pin on Roxanne Perez, but then after the match, we're seeing signs of I guess fractures happening within Bayley, and she kind of turned on Lyra as Lyra was trying to congratulate her and give her a hug and all that. Bayley shoved her down like, "How dare you touch me? How dare you touch?" It's like she's going through this kind of almost, this breakdown, for everybody to see. Then the next match saw Rusev defeat JD McDonough as Dominic Mysterio chose not to come to McDonough's aid, as McDonough was held in the Accolade, Rusev's version of the camel clutch. Dominic stood there frozen as Finn Balor had to come out and save JD from causing some apparent friction within the men's portion of the Judgment Day. In a singles match, Jey Uso defeated LA Knight. Following the match, of course, the Vision's Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker came out to try to beat down LA Knight, only for Jimmy Uso to come make the save. When he tried to convince Jay to go make the save, Jay just walked away. So there are some, there does seem to be some planting of the seeds, as it were, for a possible Jey Uso heel turn. So I guess there's even some people saying that maybe on an earlier segment of Raw where He was even eyeing the WWE, the undisputed title held by Cody Rhodes, who made an appearance to kind of help pump up the upcoming Crown Jewel Championship match with Seth Rollins. Cody Rhodes coming up at Perth in a few weeks. So then, and then in the main event of the show, of course. Oops. I don't even know. Did that. In the main event of the of last night's Raw, Rhea Ripley successfully defeated Asuka of the Kabuki Warriors, and Kairi Sane was in her corner. And what ended up happening was, after the match was over, Asuka misted Rhea. Now, what I mean by misted, she basically spit, mist into the face of Rhea Ripley, blinding her, as she basically turned heel as Asuka and Kairi Sane started attacking Ripley, only for Io Sky to come out, try to get them to back off of Rhea Ripley, only for them to turn on Kairi Sane. So the big heel turn that's been kind of rumored for the last few weeks from the Kabuki Warriors, again, as they turned on Io Sky, has happened now. So that's all we got for the actually, I'm sorry. I do have one more thing to do there, which is, of course, look ahead to tonight's NXT. What's going on tonight's NXT, and I'll talk a bit about that real quick here before we get into some AEW news and some TNA news. So on tonight's NXT, coming from the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, on the CW network. In the finals for the number one contenders match for the WWE Women's Speed title, this match will determine who will next face Sol Ruca for the Speed title. Candice LeRae will be taking on Lainey Reed. In a lights out match, Lexis King takes on Miles Borne. Now, normally in a lights out match, it just simply means it's an unsanctioned match. And usually that would be a match for that would usually be left as a main event, because as I said, it's unsanctioned. The ref is usually only there to count the three, and that's it. And then and apparently a title versus title match, TNA World Champion Trick Williams takes on NXT Champion Obafemi. I'm not really too fond of doing this kind of thing, but I personally hope that match ends in like a double count out or double disqualification or something, or a draw, something to that effect. I just don't like this apparent need for, let's just get lazy with our booking. We have all this talent, but yet we got to put more than one title on a person. It's ridiculous, in my opinion. But anyways, so with that, and also since we do have it has some time, I'll also talk a little bit about the TNA news that just came out. So it was announced, I guess, over the weekend here, that Mickie James will be inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame coming up at this October's Bound for Glory pay-per-view, coming up at in about a couple of weeks here on October the 12th, 2 weeks from, and of course, this Friday, it'll be the Victory Road pay-per-view. 2 weeks after that, Bound for Glory. Bound for Glory is basically TNA's WrestleMania for all intents and purposes. and it will, of course, see and it will see at least the first announcement of the first person announced for the Hall of Fame. This year's Hall of Fame induction will be Mickie James. So now some AEW news. So there's been a lot of talk about how WWE has been trying to sabotage AEW of late. Most notably, the counter programming that we talked about, how they're trying to schedule their events against they're trying to schedule their events against AEW's. Well, there's a little bit more meat to that story now, as it was revealed by somebody who attended the All Out event, as he was sitting in one section of the arena, and then he was asked by AEW staff to go with him to another portion of the arena, because apparently, now according to this report, WWE had apparently bought a number of seats at the Scotchbank Arena. The seats were primarily on the opposite side of the hard camera. Basically, the camera you see when you look at the TV, and you see where the idea. What they're basically trying to say is WWE bought out all the seats for where the opposite of where the hard camera is going to be, to make it look like that the event was empty. And so they moved a bunch of spectators from one part of the arena to that area, to where to kind of counter that. Now, whether or not I don't know if there's been no confirmation, but according to this individual, they said that the Scotchbank Arena employee told him that supposedly happened. Now, it would be kind of a strange story, in that you would think WWE really went out of their way to do something like this. It's kind of hard. It's kind of a head scratcher for a lot of you. It's kind of something that'd be kind of hard to believe, because you'd think they'd be more concerned about their own show, trying to do the best with that, especially considering the fact that their own show, WrestlePalooza, got panned pretty badly. Cage match has the average in about 5.5. So, but now, with that being said, now, of course, with today being Tuesday, September 23rd, 2023, or 2025 rather, let's go ahead and take a look back at this date in each history. So let me just review here. 1955, 1975, and 2020. All right. So first off, I'm going to head back 70 years ago. As on this date, 70 years ago today, and I pull it up here. The NWA's Georgia territory, Georgia Championship Wrestling, held an event at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium in Atlanta, Georgia. The main event saw Freddie Blassie successfully retain the Georgia Southern Heavyweight Champion over Roy Shire via DQ, with Bobby Wallace in his corner. Also on the card, you saw Cowboy Colson defeat DQ via El Toro via DQ. Opening match saw Red McIntyre defeat Tokyo Joe, and then it ended up in a tag match where Andre Drap teamed with Red McIntyre to defeat Tokyo Joe and Whitey Whitler. So 70 years ago today, Georgia Championship Wrestling held an event at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium in Atlanta, Georgia. In the main event, seeing Freddie Blassie successfully retain the Georgia Southern Heavyweight title over Roy Shire via DQ. And now after that, we move ahead to the year, I believe it's going to be 2009. That had been 16 years ago today. This date, 16 years ago today. Let's bring it up here. On this date, 16 years ago today, the fifth and final issue of 76 of Image Comics went on sale on this date back in 2009. It sold for $2.99, 32 pages. A couple of stories in there. The fifth chapter of the Jackie Karma story and also Cool Chapter 5. So the fifth and final issue of 76 went on sale on this date back in 2009. And finally, we move ahead to the year 2020, 5 years ago today, as soon as I bring that up here. On this date in the year 2020, NUT or Nuts Decadence concluded its run on Japanese television on this date back in 2020. So 5 years ago today, Nut Studios Decadence completed its run on Japanese television on this date back in 2020. All right, so with that being said, I thank everybody for being here. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. I still need to look up specifically what we'll be reading on Sunday, but my guest will be Rick Piper, I believe, will be joining me, and we'll be continuing our look back to, I think it'll be Quality Comics. That much I do know. I just don't know specific stories yet. We're looking back at comics that went on sale from Quality in June of 1940. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.